What unfolds here is perhaps the most striking revelation across the entire diplomatic effort. Iran is simultaneously refusing to remove its enriched uranium while conceding that it lacks the capacity to do so on its own, all the while proposing a 5-year moratorium that allows it to retain the material at 60% enrichment, just a technical step away from weapons grade. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps' declaration that the Strait of Hormuz itself serves as its nuclear weapon is an institutional acknowledgement that the leverage over the strait substitutes for what the nuclear program was intended to provide. The timing of the floating armory seizure during a summit producing public co-signatures on the nuclear red line is the operational answer the IRGC has executed to counter diplomatic developments it cannot otherwise block. It cannot halt the co-signatures, but it can intercept weapons while signatories are still in the same room. Now, turning to Rubio's statements, there are 2 sentences that carry immense strategic weight. He emphasized that the United States will never endorse an Iranian tolling system in the Strait, nor recognize any Iranian entitlement to place mines in international waters. This is the U.S. position on Iran's maritime claims, articulated with a clarity that is rare in diplomatic discourse. Never. No right. These are not hedged phrases leaving room for negotiation. They are explicit principles defining the limits of American tolerance before any discussion of further concessions. The second statement Rubio made warrants the closest examination. We are not asking for Chiron delivers approximately 1.6 million barrels daily at steep discounts. The Strait of Hormuz represents the lifeline through which all Gulf energy exports transit to China. From Beijing's perspective, the priority is a stable, unobstructed waterway that maintains normal commercial shipping flows, keeping the energy supply for its economy reliable while avoiding the inflated costs that disruptions impose on imports and downstream industry competitiveness. In this context, Xi Jinping's offer of assistance, along with his public objection to Iranian tolling, reflects real Chinese economic interests, rather than mere diplomatic theater. The second dimension is strategic and military. China's long-term planning includes the Taiwan scenario, in which any military operation to assert control over Taiwan would require managing simultaneous U.S. responses across multiple theaters. In that scenario, having the Strait of Hormuz under Chinese-aligned control, rather than American-supervised access, represents a significant strategic advantage. If the IRGC maintains functional authority over the strait as Iranian sovereign territory, and if China enjoys preferential treatment for its vessels under Arashi's proposed coordination, then the energy security outlook for a Taiwan contingency improves considerably compared to a scenario where U.S. naval forces control access and can selectively cut off China's supply during a military confrontation. The floating armory seizure during the summit sits squarely at the intersection of these 2 dimensions. Publicly, China aligns with the American position on the strait. Operationally, it indirectly facilitates the IRGC's acquisition of a weapons cache, enhancing their capacity to uphold their control doctrine. The message is clear. While publicly denying support, channels still exist to allow Iran operational gains. This reflects a strategic actor simultaneously navigating both commercial and military interests. Iran's rhetoric is equally telling. At the very moment when operational indicators point to the regime understanding its limitations, the most aggressive language emerges from Tehran. Parliamentary Speaker Ghalibaf posted on social media asserting that Iran's armed forces are ready to deliver a lesson-giving response to any aggression, while the IRGC formally declared the Strait of Hormuz to be Iran's nuclear weapon. These declarations merit precise analytical scrutiny rather than the typical dismissive treatment. Ghalibaf's post represents the voice of a former negotiator removed from the IRGC-led diplomatic team, forced to mirror statements of the president and foreign minister, underscoring that Iran's politics feature only revolutionaries, not moderates or radicals. Speaking from a parliamentary platform under IRGC oversight, his lesson-giving rhetoric is a domestic political performance intended to project defiance. It is not a threat calibrated against American capabilities. The IRGC's operational capacity, as described by Admiral Cooper, has been reduced from 159 ships to essentially 0, and fast attack boat transits from 40 down to 2 or 3. The threatened lesson lacks a military instrument capable of delivering it at the implied scale. The IRGC's declaration of the Strait as its nuclear weapon is more analytically significant. It publicly identifies the substitute for the nuclear deterrent Iran cannot presently wield. The nuclear program was meant to create untouchability, but Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025 and Operation Epic Fury's systematic destruction of Iran's defense industrial base eradicated the physical infrastructure of that deterrent, leaving the Iranian government acknowledging it cannot rebuild without foreign technical assistance. By naming the Strait of Hormuz as the replacement deterrent, the IRGC asserts that controlling the waterway grants leverage akin to a nuclear weapon. This is the strategic narrative, sustaining the regime's institutional relevance in the absence of a nuclear capability. The American blockade, the UAE's Fujairah pipeline bypass, and Cooper's testimony regarding the reduction of fast attack boats from 40 to 2 or 3 per transit collectively dismantle this claim through operational realities rather than counter-narratives. Bringing all tracks together clarifies the full strategic picture of May 15th, 2026, and signals the trajectory over the next 48 to 72 hours. The financial track is under maximum stress. Iran is losing $500 million daily due to denied import and export capacity caused by the blockade. The Karg Island storage crisis has escalated to the point that satellite imagery reveals no loading activity in a 71-kilometer oil slick. The threshold for well shutdown is imminent. The 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, which Iran cannot remove without foreign assistance, remains locked by the blockade, generating no revenue through exports. The IRGC faces $500 million in daily losses, while the assets they defend are too devastated to restore without Chinese or American help. The floating armory seizure is the financial track's most direct manifestation. The IRGC is running out of weapons because it is running out of funds. The capture of a Chinese-operated weapons vessel during a summit where Beijing publicly committed not to supply arms represents an operational response by an organization whose procurement channels have been severed, forcing it to resort to maritime piracy against vessels operated by a country that pledged to stop arming Iran. The military track is primed for the next phase. A-10 Warthogs, the so-called boat busters, are on station, dozens forced into readiness. AC-130J gunships are positioned to enforce engagement. The kill chain, including E-2D Hawkeye sensor fusion, Link 16 data distribution, F-16 CJ Wild Weasel operations, F-35 contested airspace penetration, and H-64 Apache close-in capabilities, is fully exercised. Israel is on its highest alert. The U.S. airlift is accelerating. Trump is aboard Air Force One, having rejected the initial proposal outright. The diplomatic track has reached a terminal point. Iraqi postponed nuclear negotiations and proposed a 5-year moratorium, whereas Trump demands a genuine 20-year period with all enriched fuel removed. Gallup posts defiance from a parliamentary platform controlled by the IRGC, which simultaneously hijacked a Chinese weapons vessel during a summit where China publicly promised to halt armaments. The ceasefire Trump described as a favor for Pakistan teeters on life support, with the floating armory seizure providing operational justification for ending it. The implications of the floating armory seizure are profound for the conflict's next phase. The IRGC's capture of the Chinese-operated armory during the Trump-Guy summit constitutes a simultaneous logistics operation, intelligence signal, strategic message, and arguably the most consequential operational act since the May 7th denial of Sea Doctrine and subsequent destruction of underground missile facilities by CENTCOM. Logistically, it replenishes the IRGC's dwindling weapon inventory, depleted by daily losses of $500 million. From an intelligence perspective, the success without resistance reveals who possessed precise operational awareness of the vessel's location, schedule, and security measures. Strategically, it signals that diplomatic agreements between superpowers do not constrain operational behavior in the theater. Operationally, combined with the sinking of the Indian-flagged Hajj Ali by cruise missile in the same window, it establishes justification for the military actions currently staged, positioned, and awaiting Trump's decision aboard Air Force One. On a Friday, Iran simultaneously seized a floating armory, sank an Indian vessel, declared the Strait of Hormuz its nuclear weapon, and had Galabah threaten a lesson-giving response with a navy effectively at the bottom of the sea. Iraqi postponed nuclear talks. Trump rejected the proposal as unacceptable, and the ceasefire teeters on life support. The U.S. airlift accelerates. Israel is at maximum alert. A-10s are deployed. AC-130Js are ready. F-16s occupy Prince Sultan. B-1Bs are in the eastern Mediterranean. GBU-57s restocked, Operation Sledgehammer named, and the nation that publicly vowed not to arm Iran has just had a Chinese-operated weapons vessel seized by IRGC fast attack boats within 24 hours. The lesson the IRGC threatens is not what it will receive. The actual response will be defined by the coordinated force of boat busters, mini-howitzers, 53 F-16s, GBU-57s, escalating airlift, and Israel's heightened alert, precisely synchronized with the operational trigger provided by the floating armory seizure. Please leave your thoughts about this content in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.